Welcome to the cycle of illness, immune system, part 2, the microbiome. We are going to be looking at the roles of the human gut microbiome, the different types of microbiota in your microbiome, and the theater of activity, what they do and how they all connect to the cycle of illness. And we're going to look at the internal and external structural elements as well as the microbial metabolites, what your microbiome does for you. So let's get started. What is the microbiome? A biome is a distinct ecosystem characterized by its environment and its inhabitants. Your gut inside your intestines is in fact a miniature biome. Another word for it is its own ecosystem, populated by trillions of microscopic organisms. And the microbiome consists of the oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestine, and the anus. The densest microbial communities coat the mouth, skin, and the gut, and that includes your esophagus, stomach, small and large intestines. These microorganisms include over 1,000 species of bacteria, as well as viruses, fungi, and parasites. It includes approximately 100 trillion bacterial cells. The human body is made up of approximately 37 trillion of human cells. So as you can see, the bacteria in your body far outnumbers the cells you have. At any given time, you're carrying about 3 times more bacterial cells than human ones. There's a consensus that viruses outnumber bacterial cells 5 to 1. Tenfold fewer fungal than bacterial cells, and all of these numbers are estimates because the microbiome is ever changing. If you flattened out your intestinal tract, it would be the size of a tennis court. The surface area inside your intestinal tract is why the microbiome in the gut is the densest on Earth. Believe it or not, your gut is completely unique to you. It is like a fingerprint. We're all very much alike, but with minor differences that make up each individual. Its estimated size when weight is approximately 2.5 pounds. The volume of microbiome is approximately 3 pints. The microbiome isn't all in one place. It varies in population and density based on where it is. In sterile environments, it's in the blood and lymphatic system. And the densest microbial communities on Earth are in your intestines and colon. Each person's microbiome carries out similar functions, but each person's microbiome varies slightly, and these variations can dictate our personality, stress responses, moods, physical and mental health. It can also dictate how your immune system works. Certain broad functions are always found, but not always carried out by the same species of microbiota. Some of your microbiota is very specific. For example, certain types of microbiota, their job is to metabolize a particular drug. Other types of microbiota digest particular dietary compounds. And not all of these functions are found in everyone or at all times. So as you grow, your microbiome is constantly changing. You get sick, or you take antibiotics, or you have a lot of stress, or you're eating the wrong foods. You are actually changing the dynamics of your microbiome. Your microbiome is in your gastrointestinal tract. You have some gut microbiome in your stomach, so your small intestines, but most of them are in your large intestines or colon. They float around inside or attach to the mucus lining on the inner walls. That's called your mucosa. The types of gut bacteria that live in your colon are different from the types that live elsewhere. There are 2 kinds of gut bacteria. There are anaerobic and aerobic bacteria. Aerobic bacteria needs oxygen, and those live in your mouth, esophagus, skin, stomach, and small intestine. They process simple sugars and proteins. They are competing with pathogens, especially lactobacillus, and much smaller on concentration than the colon and large intestines. Anaerobic bacteria require an oxygen-free environment, and those live in your colon and large intestines. They're mostly anaerobic bacteria that require low oxygen environments to survive. In the large intestines, or colon, anaerobic gut bacteria perform important functions within your colon that only they can do. They prefer oxygen-free because it's toxic to them. They help break down indigestible fibers in your digestive tract and produce essential nutrients that you can't get otherwise. By the same token, these organisms are only helpful to you within their natural microbiome. They play a huge role in fiber fermentation, producing butyrate, acetate, and propionate. They have immune modulation. They do vitamin synthesis, such as K2 and B12, and maintain gut barrier integrity. The higher oxygen, faster movement, and strong digestive juices in your upper GI tract prevent them from colonizing there. If these bacteria stray beyond your colon, they can be very harmful. Colon bacteria that manage to creep up and settle into your small intestines can interfere with the digestive process. The colon bacteria that invade your colon wall or that escape through a wound in your colon wall can cause an infection in your body. Anaerobes make up about 90 to 95% of your gut microbes in the colon. Butyrate from an anaerobic bacteria fuels the colon cells, reduces inflammation, and supports mitochondrial health. And just on a side note, if you have IBS, this can also greatly help you. Dysbiosis often means a shift from beneficial anaerobes to more pathogenic aerobes, like proteobacteria. So, balance is key. Too many aerobes in the colon equals inflammation and SIBO-like symptoms. Too few anaerobes equals low butyrate, leaky gut, and poor immune regulation. And again, if you have IBS, butyrate could be your friend. It smells bad, but boy can it help. We'll be talking more about it as we progress with the video. The Human Microbiome Project discovered that there is quite a bit of variation from one person to the next. One's microbiome is fairly stable over time, but it does change with age, diet, lifestyle, autoimmunity, and triggers. And believe it or not, it also changes during menopause, as if menopause wasn't hard enough. Infants inherit their first gut microbes during vaginal delivery or breastfeeding. There are dramatically changes between birth and 2 years of age. Later, your diet and other environmental exposures introduce new microbes to your biome. Some of these exposures can also harm and diminish your gut microbiota. The microbiomes of various body sites are similar to everyone. Thus, your skin microbiome is more similar to other people's skin microbiome than your own gut microbiome. When the microbiome is classified by the bacterial species in each person, they look very different from person to person, i.e., the type and quantity of that particular bacterial species. They're classified by the presence of various functional capabilities. For example, the ability to digest different types of carbohydrates, synthesize vitamins, or break down toxins. They look more similar from person to person. Most of the microorganisms in our guts have a symbiotic relationship with us, their hosts. That means we both benefit from the relationship. We provide them with food and shelter, and they provide important services for our bodies. These helpful microbes can also help keep potentially harmful ones in check. You can think of your gut microbiome as a diverse native garden that you rely on for nutritious foods and medicines. When your garden is healthy and thriving, you thrive too. But if the soil is depleted or polluted, or if pests or weeds are overrunning the helpful plants, it can upset your whole ecosystem. And I want to point out, if your gut isn't happy or has dysbiosis, then nothing in your body will be happy. And the worse it gets, the worse your symptoms will get. And stress alone can alter your microbiome and cause inflammation. So let's look at the role of the gut microbiome in digestion and metabolism. Digestion unfolds top to bottom. It begins the moment food enters your mouth and is followed by a complex process of mechanical and chemical digestion until the waste your body doesn't need is removed out the other end. The digestive system has the amazing ability of orchestrating tons of digestive events so that you can get the most nutrition out of the food that you eat. Research shows that the health of your gut is critical for way more than just digestion. Complicating the effort to understand the role of the microbiome in many non-infectious diseases is the fact that most such conditions are multifactorial. Changes in the microbiome may be a major contributor in some patients or under certain conditions, but not all. Obesity, for example, has genetic, environmental, hormonal, neurological, and many other contributing factors, in addition to the role of the microbiome. However, the microbiome plays a huge role in regulating all these areas of the human body. Studies in mice suggest that there are very strong feedback loops connecting diet, the microbiome, and metabolism. And as we continue with this video, you'll understand why. Mice that have maintained in a germ-free state are leaner than mice with microbiomes even when they are fed more food or a high-fat, high-sugar diet. Without a microbiome, much of the food passes through undigested. Germ-free mice that are inoculated with the microbiome of an obese mouse or human donor gain more fat. To put it into perspective, let's say you share your drinks with somebody else. And let's say that they are highly overweight and you are a very thin, lean individual. Even through the act of kissing or using another person's fork or using their glass can change your microbiome because some of theirs is getting into you. And this can alter your microbiome. The microbiome composition changes within a single day when mice or humans are fed high-fat diets. And when the resulting high-fat microbiome is transferred into a germ-free mouse, that mouse will be fatter than a littermate given the microbiome of an adult on a normal diet. These and many other observations in mice, humans, and other animals suggest not only that the microbiome has a major effect on body fat, but that it also is possible to shift the microbiome in ways that either encourage or discourage the accumulation of fat. Studies, including this one, are looking at correlations between gut microbiomes, composition, and factors like weight, insulin sensitivity, and other metabolic measures. And hold on to your hats because I do it for you in part 3 of the video series. The microbiome interacts with many of your body systems and assists with many body functions. It does far more than you may even realize. Everything is interconnected. If your gut isn't happy, nothing is happy. So, what does it all do? Digestion. It does complex carbohydrates, nutrient absorption, creatine, and synthesizes essential vitamins. Immune system modulation protects against pathogenic microbes and influences susceptibility to infections and diseases, and also how it trains your immune system. It protects against pathogens such as pneumonia, salmonella, we'll just call it C. difficile. Some of you know this as C. diff, and a nasty little infection, and others. Promotion of intestinal angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels in the intestinal tissues. It is crucial for maintaining intestinal health. And dysregulation of angiogenesis causes various intestinal diseases, such as Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. It also works with promotion of fat storage, energy extraction from food, regulating lipogenesis, and it modulates adipocyte thermogenesis, and obese individuals have a gut microbiome that favors increased absorption of glucose, synthesis of fat in the liver, and decreased fat breakdown in the body. It also does short-chain fatty acid production, and it modulates the central nervous system. The microbiome is also connected to every system in the body, either directly or indirectly. This slide here is illustrating that fact, and in part 3 we will get into it far more. The microbiome produces or supports important biochemicals. One of them is short-chain fatty acids, and those are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. They also do vitamins B1, B7, B9, B12, and vitamin K, amino acids such as tryptophan and histamine, neurotransmitters such as serotonin, GABA, and dopamine, and other metabolites like TMA, PSA, and IPA. We'll be talking more about this later, but TMA is trimethylamine, and it's a metabolite produced by specific gut bacteria during the breakdown of certain dietary compounds like choline, carnitine, and betaine. They are primarily found in animal-based foods like red meat and eggs. This will get absorbed into the bloodstream and travels to the liver. In the liver, the enzyme converts TMA into trimethylamine N oxide. That's TMAO. Elevated levels of TMAO in the blood have been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, and thrombosis. And thrombosis causes clots. PSA is polysaccharide A. This is a specific polysaccharide produced by the commensal gut bacterium. Its function acts as a crucial immunomodulatory molecule. It primarily interacts with toll-like receptors on dendritic cells and induces the production of regulatory T cells, which in turn secrete the anti-inflammatory cytokines interleukin-10. It has been shown to protect against inflammatory conditions like colitis, asthma, and experimental autoimmune encephalomyelitis in animal models. Psoriatic arthritis, this is a type of chronic inflammatory arthritis that is associated with psoriasis. And its gut connection, research shows that a link between gut dysbiosis and imbalance of the microorganisms in the gut and PSA. Studies indicate that individuals with psoriatic arthritis often have less diverse gut microbiomes and lower levels of certain gut bacteria compared to healthy individuals, with the gut microbiota composition of psoriatic arthritis patients resembling that of individuals with inflammatory bowel disease. So you can see where arthritis and IBS or IBD can go hand in hand. IPA, or indole-3-propionic acid, is a tryptophan metabolite produced exclusively by certain gut bacteria, including some species of Clostridium and Peptostreptococcus. The function of IPA plays a vital role in maintaining gut barrier function and modulating the immune system. It's been linked to various beneficial effects on the host health. So it provides gut barrier integrity. IPA can stimulate the expression of tight junction proteins, which are crucial for maintaining the integrity of the intestinal epithelial barrier and reducing the leakage of harmful substances from the gut into the bloodstream. It also has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. IPA has been demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, helping to counteract inflammation and oxidative stress in various tissues. It also helps with metabolic health. IPA levels are associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes and have shown potential in improving glucose and lipid metabolism, according to the National Institute of Health. It also helps with protection against diseases. IPA has shown potential in the prevention of treatment of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, Alzheimer's disease, and even some cancers. It also helps with respiratory and muscle health. Some studies suggest that IPA may have a protective role against lung infections like tuberculosis and can even promote muscle growth and relieve muscle inflammation, according to the National Institute of Health. So, influences of diet, the IPA levels are significantly influenced by the diet, with a higher intake of dietary fiber correlating to increased IPA levels. So the incredible complexity of the gut and its importance to our overall health is a topic of increasing research in the medical community. And it needs to be, because it's the linchpin that helps hold everything together. Research over the past few decades have found links between gut health and mental health disorders, autoimmune diseases, endocrine conditions, gastrointestinal conditions, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. And through this video and the next video, you will see why. A higher level of diversity in gut bacteria may be associated with improved general mental and physical health. And just remember, in my healing protocols, I help rebuild all of this. Okay, so what does the microbiome do at its core? It digests fiber, and that produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. It helps regulate the immune function and synthesizes vitamins B12, K2, biotin, and folate. It communicates with the brain and the endocrine system. It also helps control inflammation, blood sugar, and hormone metabolism. So, especially if you're going through menopause, you want to make sure you have healthy of a microbiome as possible. The healthier microbiome, usually the easier it will be on you. The immune system interacts with many systems in our body. So let's take a look at how the microbiome interacts with different things. Our digestive system. It breaks down fibers and resistant starches into short-chain fatty acids. It fuels colon cells, reduces inflammation. It supports gut lining integrity, which prevents leaky gut. It helps produce digestive enzymes that absorb nutrients. It works with the nervous system, gut-brain axis. Microbes produce neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. It also affects your mood, focus, anxiety, and sleep. And the vagus nerve is a key communication highway between the gut and the brain. The lymphatic system, the gut and lymph are closely linked. Lymphatic vessels transport immune cells, fats, and toxins. And the gut inflammation burdens the lymph nodes, so puffiness, brain fog, and fatigue is a result. It interacts in your endocrine system. Your gut flora can activate or inactivate hormones. It is involved in the enterohepatic circulation of hormones like estrogen. It interacts with the HPA axis, that is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, influencing cortisol and stress response. So the adrenals, which is part of the HPA, chronic dysbiosis equals chronic stress, and the HPA axis will be dysregulated. This raises cortisol, which further disrupts the microbiome, and this becomes a negative feedback loop. And in part 3 of the video series, we actually go through this in great detail because this is a huge key to improving your health. The good flora helps regulate stress recovery. It interacts with your thyroid. So your microbiome helps convert T4 to T3, that is the active thyroid hormone. Imbalance can impair this conversion, and dysbiosis equals gut inflammation, which equals autoimmune thyroid diseases, and that's usually Hashimoto's. It also interacts with estrogen. Gut microbes from the estroblome metabolize estrogen, and estroblome is basically a part of your microbiome that deals specifically with estrogen, and we will be talking about that in depth in part 3. Dysbiosis equals poor estrogen clearance, estrogen dominance symptoms, and PMS, fibroids, and breast tenderness. This also plays a big part when you are younger with how you tolerate your menstrual cycles, and as you get older, your menopause symptoms. It also interacts with blood sugar regulation. Short-chain fatty acids improve insulin sensitivity. Gut flora influences glucose metabolism, and dysbiosis will result in insulin resistance, cravings, and energy crashes. And if you've had any of these problems, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And your microbiome plays a huge part in this. Another item that I didn't put in this slide but does get affected, it also helps with tolerating your oxalates and salicylates. And if you've been watching my videos and you know what's coming, how is it all connected? Okay, this is the part where we talk about the microbiome and how it all connects to the cycle of illness. It's all connected. The microbiome acts like a universal adapter, linking systems you might never expect to influence one another. A balanced, diverse microbiome means better mood and energy, stronger immunity, fewer food reactions and clearer skin, and healthier hormone balance. So let's see how it ties together. Histamine levels. Some bacteria produce histamine. Others help degrade histamine, such as Bifidobacteria lactobacillus plantarum. Dysbiosis can cause histamine intolerance, resulting in migraines, hives, and gut issues. It also works for inflammation levels. Butyrate and other short-chain fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. Dysbiosis equals more LPS, or lipopolysaccharides, which results in systemic inflammation. Gut bugs help regulate cytokine activity, such as interleukin 6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. It also works with the mitochondria. Short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, enhance mitochondrial function. So if you've got IBS and a lot of gut issues, butyrate can help not only your gut, but also your mitochondria. Some microbes produce CoQ10, NAD+, precursors, and help regulate oxidative stress. And dysbiosis would equal mitochondrial dysfunction via increased ROS, which is the reactive oxygen species. And again, this is like a rusting in your body. It's damaging your body. Okay, this is one of those things where it's the Goldilocks zone. If you have too much, it's going to damage your body. If you don't have enough, you're going to have troubles fighting viruses, infections, pathogens, etc. or infected cells. Alright, the microbiome also affects methylation, and this involves your B vitamins, your folate, and your SAMe. And remember, the folate is the MTHFR 677 Tango, and SAMe is the MTHFR 1298 Charlie. Microbes synthesize B vitamins critical for methylation, which are B2, B6, B12, and folate. They influence SAMe production, which is a key methyl donor. Dysbiosis can block or deplete methylation due to inflammation, toxin load, or poor nutrient conversion. So it's really important, because if you have dysbiosis in your gut, it's really going to mess with your methylation. When it comes to BH4 and methylation, that is the BH4 cycle in your methylation. BH4 is an essential for neurotransmitter and nitric oxide synthesis. Inflammation and oxidative stress from dysbiosis can greatly deplete your BH4, and low BH4 will equal poor dopamine and serotonin production and mood and cognitive issues. And if not treated properly in a timely manner, this will also lead to neurological issues, as well as neurological diseases down the road. Dysbiosis also messes with folate receptors. So the gut bacteria produces folate in bioavailable forms, and dysbiosis may block or interfere with folate uptake or transport. This does impair methylation, DNA repair, and fetal development if you are pregnant. And again, the folate is the MTHFR 677 Tango. So dysbiosis will mess with that entire cycle. It also works with the immune system. 70 to 80% of your immune cells reside in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, called the GULT. Healthy microbiome equals a balance of Th1 and Th2 immune responses. It promotes tolerance and prevents autoimmunity, so you can start to see just how important your microbiome is. So just to eliminate any confusion, the MALT is the mucosal tissues of the human body. The GULT is your oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, pancreas, and intestinal tract. Your respiratory tract is your BALT. Each of these have very specialized lymphatic tissues. So the GULT is the gut intestinal lymphatic tissue. Alright, what affects your microbiome? Diet. Diet is the biggest one. It requires a variety of plant fibers to thrive. Different organisms prefer different food, and your microbiome behaves in the same way. In turn, it produces short-chain fatty acids and other byproducts that nourish your gut. They lower the pH inside of your body, which favors good microbes. Diet high in sugar and fats feed harmful bacteria, and processed foods lack fiber and micronutrients. And this comes with additives and preservatives which further harm your microbiome. Okay, I am going to mention this here. There's a lot of folks that I work with when they're down to very few foods that they can tolerate. And we're trying to switch their body to healthier food, and they wind up having horrible reactions. And they'll tell me, Donna Kay, I can only eat chips and soda. That's the only thing I can tolerate. And this is where I tell you that that is because of your gut microbiome. You've been feeding all the wrong microbes, and now they have taken over. And all the ones that digest your fruits, your vegetables, etc., have crashed. So when you're switching and trying to go back to a healthy diet, of course you're going to have terrible reactions. And that's why it is extremely important to cut down your food, cut out all those bad foods, and fast. Because we're going to help reduce all the bad bacteria. And then once we get to that stage, because it needs sugar to survive. And once we take away that sugar, they start to starve to death, which also, as they die off, cause more symptoms. So during this stage, make sure you're taking your antihistamines, etc. And the symptoms can be pretty brutal. Trust me, I understand. But fasting starves out all the bad bacteria. And then the healing protocol helps us to rebuild the proper microbiome. And that is why the healing protocol is designed the way that it is. We're getting rid of the bad and we're replacing it with the good, and we're rebuilding your microbiome so it can handle a wide diversity of foods and improve your health greatly. On top of that, we're improving the function of your immune system. And now you're kind of starting to see why I'm always saying you gotta fast and then rebuild by juicing. And remember, your immune system is in your gut, and it helps control the functions of your immune system. On top of that, it'll improve your health, your skin, it'll promote healing of your body and organs, it'll help fix the nutrient deficiencies and excesses, and shut down all the aberrant processes that are making you sick. If you're still able to tolerate foods, but you need to improve your health because you're not feeling well, even just adding juice to your meals will help a great deal. And I don't mean juice that you buy. You actually have to make it, because there are so many vitamins, minerals, nutrients, phytosterols, and everything else in it that dies after 20 to 30 minutes. So, and this is all what helps rebuild your microbiome, not to mention is this is what actually heals your body. If you're buying it from the store, it's usually sugar laden, and on top of that, all those important enzymes, minerals, vitamins, polyphenols, and all that other good stuff that's in it has died off. Are you starting to see why I say this is so important? I know it's not fun for everyone, but this is the way through it. And it doesn't have to taste awful. There's a lot of good combinations out there. Processed foods that lack fiber and micronutrients, and they also come with additives and preservatives which harm the microbiome. High fiber plant-rich foods feed beneficial bacteria. Processed foods, sugar, and artificial additives feed harmful bacteria. This will also cause terrible sugar cravings. Fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, etc. increase microbial diversity. Polyphenols, which are very important, like berries, green tea, olive oil, support beneficial strains. Medications can also affect the microbiome. Antibiotics wipe out both good and bad bacteria. In bone marrow transplants, organ transplants, they have different microbiomes because of the antibiotic use. Mice studies showed consuming lactose, or sugar in dairy, have higher levels of harmful bacteria, Enterococcus, in their gut. They can also give rise to cancers once the microbiome diversity is diminished. Proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs, reduce stomach acid, and that alters your gut flora. NSAIDs and other drugs can increase gut permeability, so therefore leaky gut, and disrupt microbial balance. It also crashes your DAO levels in your gut and makes you more susceptible to histamine issues. Opioids does a lot to your microbiome, and nothing good. Besides diet, here's a big one: stress. Chronic stress increases cortisol and catecholamines. And remember, catecholamines are stuff that help produce more adrenaline, and that's found in dairy, sodas, chocolate, etc. I actually wrote a section on catecholamines. I believe that's in part 3. But I also talk about it in depth in the methylation video and the inflammation video as well. So stress will greatly alter your gut motility and microbial composition. It reduces beneficial species like lactobacillus. So when you have chronic stress, especially if you have IBS, you are going to get very inflamed. Now, those who do not have irritable bowel diseases of any kind may not notice it as much. But if you are noticing that your gut swells up when you're eating, and you've been under a lot of stress, here's one of the signs that you need to cut back on your stress and start healing. And if you do have IBS or other IBDs, stress alone can cause the inflammation and cause more damage to your gut and make you more reactive. Sleep and your circadian rhythms. Now remember, your circadian rhythm and methylation go hand in hand. So, poor sleep equals a disrupted microbiome rhythms. And if you have a poor microbiome, this is also going to affect how well you sleep. A lot of healing takes place while you're sleeping. So this can interrupt your microbiome's rhythmic activity. It will in turn affect immunoregulatory pathways, your vagus nerve, which has your gut-brain axis. Ever notice how you get the munchies at night? And your neuroendocrine pathways, which alters your hormones. The quality of sleep will also affect your gut microbiome and trigger more of the HPA axis, and that in turn heightens your stress responses and creates more adrenaline in your body, which damages your body and can also make it impossible to sleep, which just further harms you. So interrupted sleep and problems with methylation will mess with your gut permeability, that's leaky gut, motility, how your food moves through your gut like constipation, diarrhea, etc., immunology, and the endocrine pathways which alter your hormone productions. This creates a really negative feedback loop. A word of warning to the shift workers, and I have learned this firsthand. If you are a shift worker, you are far more susceptible to sleep deprivations and messing up your circadian rhythms or your body's natural clock, which also messes up your methylation. It messes up your gut permeability, causing more leaky gut, immune system malfunctions, and even neurological diseases. You'd be surprised with the body clock being off how much of a health issue that can be. If you have the MTHFR or other health issues, you need to get off shift work as best as possible, or this will make you worse in the long run. Trust me, you do not want that. You're going to want to make sure you develop very healthy sleep habits. You're going to want to make sure that you do get exercise and that you are eating a very balanced, nutrient-dense meal every single day. Especially if you're on the grave shift and you are downing the caffeine, because that's going to mess up methylation and everything else. And it affects your metabolism, your digestion, and your inflammation. Remember, this is directly tied to methylation, so this will result in neurological and immunological issues. Now, remember, methylation follows your circadian rhythm. So at night, your body starts to ramp down and your methylation starts to come down because your body's clock is telling you it's time for bed. If you are one of those individuals where your symptoms flare greatly when you are tired, that is your body's way of telling you you need to sleep because your methylation is out of energy. Now, I need you to take this seriously. Do not try to force yourself to stay awake. You have got to get your rest. Otherwise, you're just going to make everything worse. And the general rule of thumb is you want to be in bed 2 to 3 hours before midnight. You want to go to bed at the exact same time every night. And you want to get up early in the morning, somewhere between 5 and 7. Generally 5 or 6. But that will help fix your methylation, your body clock, and help heal your microbiome. At the very least, it'll prevent it from getting worse. And if you start the juicing process and drink a lot of leafy greens with your meals, this will help you to fare much better. What affects the microbiome? Well, physical activity is one of them. Moderate exercise can help boost microbial diversity and gut barrier integrity. So if you have leaky gut, make sure you're moving. Environmental toxins also affect the microbiome. Pesticides, heavy metals, mold, all of this harms gut bacteria. Now, clean air, green spaces, and exposure to nature, this can actually be beneficial to your microbiome. And when it comes to toxins, this includes tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. These are also affect the liver greatly. It can damage it and slow it down, which also greatly affects your methylation because your methylation and liver are happening in the liver. Birth method and early life. A vaginal birth means that the seeds baby's microbiome with maternal flora. A C-section is different initial microbes and often hospital acquired. And breastfeeding nourishes beneficial bacteria like bifidobacterium. Infections and illnesses can also affect the microbiome. Viral, bacterial, or parasitic infections can shape the microbiome. Inflammation and immune responses can change the microbial environment. So inflammation can really harm your microbiome. And I think I talk about stress. Nope, I don't talk about stress on this slide, but so does stress. You would be so surprised what stress can do to your microbiome. And if you're smoking, drinking alcohol, or doing marijuana, you would be amazed at how much that affects your microbiome, and not in a good way. One other point that I wanted to make was when you're breathing in toxins, irregardless of what it is, if it's a trigger for you, it reaches all the way down to your stomach lining and the small intestine. So it doesn't just hit your lungs. And so I wanted to tell you this because it can cause a lot of health issues, and that too will have a direct impact on your microbiome, damage your gut lining, and including your stomach lining, which also makes it where it affects your intrinsic factor, that's your INF, and that can also complicate your ability to being able to absorb B12. Age. Believe it or not, the age you are affects your microbiome because it's constantly changing throughout your life. Significant changes occur during infancy and in childhood. But then as you get older, it tends to even out, but then it's affected by your stress, lifestyle habits, and the types of foods you eat. And when you hit menopause, it changes drastically. Because remember, inside of your microbiome is the estroblome, and that is the part of the microbiome that processes estrogen. And when you go through menopause, it makes all those changes in that department, and it affects you greatly. Genetics. Genetics makeup does influence the composition and function of the microbiome. Certain genes can affect how we digest food, which in turn impacts our gut microbiome. And we've been learning that throughout the series, in the methylation video to be exact, of how that can be affected. Gut motility also affects your microbiome, and this one is a symbiotic relationship. So your motility affects your gut microbiome, but your gut microbiome also helps affect your motility. Alright, so when it comes to motility, the regular movement of your bowels is necessary. This is how you crop of your microorganisms get turned over. After traveling through your colon, where they help break down undigested compounds. The health of your microbiome determines how well this process takes place. Movement of food and waste through your GI tract helps to distribute different microbes into different places along the way. If it's too fast, they don't have the time to settle or to do their jobs before clearing out. If it's too slow, they can overreact and overgrow, spreading beyond its territory. So if you are having pain in your liver, your gallbladder, etc., and your stool starts to get lighter and lighter and lighter in color, it is time to fast. If you're also starting to get to the point where your gut is not moving at all, it seems to be in gastroparesis, you need to fast, because that is your body's way of saying, I cannot take any more. We are broken. We need time to heal. There are meds that you can take to keep your gut moving and keeping the motility going. However, it does not fix the root problem that caused it to shut down in the first place. And if it's exceptionally slow and you're having gallbladder pain, because the gallbladder releases the bile, and the bile is what helps keep your intestinal tract healthy and free of microbes and overgrowth. So if you combine the fact that your gallbladder is struggling and painful on top of the fact that your gut is not moving, this is where you can get into trouble with food starting to ferment in your gut, which if you're a mast cell patient, this is a bad thing. Your body will start absorbing the byproducts of that fermentation, which also means that you'll also be having more inflammation and more histamine in your system. Because remember, anything that gets stuck in your gut, your body's constantly absorbing it. You will also start having more problems with infections, parasites, SIBO, candida, etc. because it's starting to promote an overgrowth of some kind. Okay, diversity. Diversity also affects your microbiome. In healthy microbiome, different microorganisms support each other. Consider how different plants in a garden cross-pollinate or nourish the soil for other plants. Well, the microbiome kind of does the exact same thing. A microbiome that doesn't support a healthy variety of microbes is more vulnerable to the unhealthy and invasive types. It's like when weeds and pests are starting to take over your garden and killing off the plants you want to keep, and the weeds are taking over instead. And this is extremely important because you need diversity in your microbes, and part of that is exercise, part of that is eating the right foods, part of that is making sure you're eating and taking care of your liver, your gallbladder, your cells, and making sure that you are developing the proper microbiome. If you are eating nothing but junk food or processed foods, this will not help you. And unfortunately, in this day and age, with all the convenience and processed foods out there, this can harm your microbiome. And if you're doing caffeine and high sugar foods, that will also only feed the bad biota and will make you intolerant to healthy foods. Remember, the microbiome is the linchpin to how well your immune system works and how it affects all the other systems in your body, your physical and mental health. It's that time again for How Is It All Connected? Alright, we are going to look at how your microbiome interacts with the entire cycle of illness. Histamine and your microbiome. How histamine affects the microbiome. High histamine levels from food or mast cell activity can damage the gut lining and increase permeability, thus causing leaky gut. And if you have the AOC1 gene mutation, which affects the ability for DAO to be produced in your gut, this will also have a big impact. And remember, if you don't make enough DAO, it cannot neutralize the histamine in your gut. So remember, a damaged gut means lower DAO. And on top of that, when you're trying to digest food, your gut releases extra histamine in order to digest the food. So it's very important that your AOC1 or the DAO gene is working properly, because that is what's going to keep that histamine level inside of your gut in check. And if you do have this problem, you always have to be mindful of histamine foods. So, with that in mind, chronic histamine overload causes an inflammatory environment that disrupts your microbial balance. Some gut bacteria produce histamine, like Morganella, Proteus, and Klebsiella, and Lactobacillus casei. Others help break down histamine via the DAO and HNMT enzymes, but low methylation or gene variants can also impair this. Okay, we talked briefly about how histamine affects your microbiome, but your microbiome also affects your histamine. So the microbiome affects histamine when there is dysbiosis, which is a microbial imbalance, and this can increase histamine-producing bacteria. It decreases DAO activity because of damage, and then that's an enzyme that degrades histamine in the gut, and it can lead to histamine intolerance, mast cell activation, and chronic symptoms like rashes, anxiety, GI upset, etc. So this is a two-way street. Inflammation and the microbiome. How inflammation affects the microbiome. Chronic inflammation damages the gut lining and its tight junctions, which prevents leaky gut. It allows LPS, which is lipopolysaccharides, and other toxins to enter the bloodstream. This also helps promote overgrowth and pathogenic bacteria while reducing beneficial species. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, how stress can also change your microbiome. The microbiome also affects inflammation. Healthy microbiota produce anti-inflammatory compounds like butyrate. Those are short-chain fatty acids. And dysbiosis leads to an elevated level of interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-1 bravo. And those are all pro-inflammatory cytokines. And if you remember, this can trigger your immune system. And an imbalanced immune responses, and it can cause overactive T helper cells and underactive T regulatory cells. So the T helper 17 cells promotes inflammation, and the TREGs, which are the T regulatory cells, they release compounds that help keep your immune system from going overboard. So if you have an imbalanced microbiome with inflammation, this will affect those immune cells greatly. It can also lead to you getting stuck in a vicious cycle with your immune system. So dysbiosis can cause a systemic inflammation loop that affects the brain, the liver, the joints, and so much more in your body. You would be amazed how much it affects. So histamine promotes inflammation, which this in turn damages your gut lining. Inflammation then hampers your mitochondria and causes dysfunction. And on top of that, you have a leaky gut, which also means that your immune system is going to start responding. Now, mitochondrial weaknesses means that you are going to have poor gut lining support. Poor methylation will result in low glutathione, high histamine, and more oxidative stress. And all of this feeds back into the microbiome, either healing it or breaking it down. So you have to keep this in mind because this plays a great deal on your overall health, especially with the cycle of illness. It affects every aspect of the cycle of illness like a massive domino effect. So as we've hinted on, mitochondrial health and the microbiome also have a close relationship. So mitochondria power the gut lining. And seeing that mitochondria produces energy, that's like your body's energy that you feel every day, that comes from your mitochondria and it's called ATP. So if it powers the gut lining, poor mitochondrial function is going to equal a very weak gut barrier, which means leaky gut. And here's the other side of this. A poor microbiome helps damage mitochondria because it's not getting the necessary nutrients that it needs. A bad diet filled with sugars, caffeines, etc. damage mitochondria, and a leaky gut also damages mitochondria. Low ATP impairs mucus production, enzyme secretion, and motility. And again, like we were talking about earlier, it leads to SIBO and stagnation. How the microbiome affects mitochondria. So, a healthy, balanced, diverse microbiome makes short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which helps nourish colon cells and fuels your mitochondria. It also reduces oxidative stress, and dysbiosis increases reactive oxygen species, which is oxidative stress, and damages your mitochondria, leading to fatigue, inflammation, and more damage to the gut cells. Are you starting to see just how integrated everything is? I know I say that a lot, but I cannot possibly stress the miraculous intertwining of all of this and how tight integrated everything is. All right, moving on. Methylation in the microbiome. How methylation affects the microbiome. Poor methylation equals low SAM-E, glutathione, and methyl donors. This leads to impaired detoxification. Low DAO also will result in more histamine, like we were saying earlier. It will increase oxidative stress because you can't detox properly, which then in turn will create more mitochondrial damage. And a weakened gut barrier will cause immune responses, which further damages your body and the cycle of illness. The other way that the microbiome can affect methylation is because the microbes help synthesize B vitamins like B6, B12, folate, even vitamin K, and these are all critical for methylation. And dysbiosis can reduce nutrient absorption and produce toxic metabolites that increase methylation demand, like ammonia, aldehydes, and LBS. And I'm going to tell you right now, this makes you intolerant to many foods. It can cause neurological issues, a prolonged immune responses, and it further hampers your methylation, which further throws the entire cycle of illness out of whack. This combination, in conjunction with the entire cycle of illness, can either make your health or completely break it. And increased inflammation from dysbiosis can block methylation pathways by increasing your cytokine stress. All right, here's something that's vitally important to your health: biochemicals produced by the microbiome. The microbiome produces or supports important biochemicals. One of them is short-chain fatty acids like acetate, propionate, and butyrate. It also does vitamins B1, B7, B9, B12, and vitamin K. Amino acids such as tryptophan and histamine. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, GABA, and dopamine, and other metabolites such as trimethylamine, polysaccharide A, and indole-3 propionate acid. I know I butchered that last one, but we'll be talking about it in a few minutes. Short-chain fatty acids also cross the blood-brain barrier and affect brain function. Acetate is involved in appetite regulation and lipogenesis. Acetate is the most abundant short-chain fatty acid in the gut and serves as an important energy source for colonic epithelial cells. It also plays a role in cholesterol metabolism and lipogenesis, that's fat formation. And it has a distinct impact on your health. Acetate can cross the blood-brain barrier, influencing central appetite regulation and energy expenditure. It can also contribute to the regulation of blood pressure and has also been shown to process anti-inflammatory properties. Or more accurately, it's the process of synthesizing fatty acids and triglycerides from excess glucose and other substrates. This metabolic pathway converts excess energy from carbohydrates into stored fat, primarily in the liver and the adipose tissue. And remember, adipose tissue is the fat around your belly. It is essentially the body's mechanism for creating and storing energy for later use. Or, for those with chronic illness, it is also creating fat to store the excess toxins the body cannot handle to prevent it from harming you. It's like a backup system or a self-preservation method. Propionate affects glucose production, cholesterol metabolism, and immune signaling. Propionate is involved in glucogenesis, which is production of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources in the liver, and inhibits cholesterol synthesis. It plays a role in cholesterol metabolism. It is an anti-inflammatory effect and can reduce lipogenesis and help maintain glucose homeostasis, so the proper levels in your body, thereby potentially playing a role in preventing metabolic disorders such as type 2 diabetes. All right, butyrate. This fuels your colon cells. It is anti-inflammatory and supports tight junctions in the gut lining. And if you have IBS, it is a helpful tool. Its function is a primary energy source for colonocytes and plays a crucial role in maintaining gut barrier integrity. So it helps prevent leaky gut. It also modulates gene expression and inflammation. And if it's modulating gene expression, that means it's working with methylation. So this one has far-reaching consequences if your body isn't making short-chain fatty acids. Butyrate has a very strong anti-inflammatory property and promotes the health of the gut lining. It has linked to protection against colorectal cancer and may influence the gut-brain axis, which I can attest that it is 100% true and affects your mood and cognitive functions. So short-chain fatty acids is extremely important, and you get them from your carbohydrates, but healthy food carbohydrates, whole food, organic, etc. Interesting fact, butyrate affects the neutrophils and how they propagate and respond. It helps with IBS patients because there's generally too many neutrophils in the gut, with inflammation and swelling in the gut. And things like slippery elm and marshmallow root can help as well, but butyrate works really good. It gives energy to the intestinal tract and helps it heal. It helps stabilize rhythm of the heart. It also helps fight cancer. This biochemical is important in your physical and mental health, and a host to many other biochemical processes in the body. Understand though, this is only local after you take it. You must heal the microbiome for it to produce butyrate on its own for long-term health. Taking butyrate is a temporary measure until you heal enough that you do not need it anymore. And just from personal experience, it smells so bad. If you've ever lived near a cheese or dairy factory, you'll recognize the smell, but thankfully because it's in a capsule, you cannot taste it. Alright, I'm going to drop a little gem here. For IBS patients, when you have massive flares, butyrate can help you better than you may realize. But the other aspect of this too is if you are on the toilet and you're feeling like you're going to pass out, your heart rate is racing through your chest, butyrate can help stabilize this. So if you're starting to get those symptoms, you're running out of short-chain fatty acids and you don't have enough to help modulate your system. So butyrate can help in this department as well. Now, this can also affect POTS patients. So again, heart rate spikes and it's beating through your chest and it just feels like it's slamming through your chest and you might pass out at any second. Butyrate might be very beneficial to you too. I have both the POTS and the IBS, and I have found during a massive flare, butyrate actually helps. Now, when it comes to POTS, other things are happening at the same time that are contributing to this. This is just one aspect of it. You gotta cut out the triggers, calm your overactive system, your nervous system, and also lower histamine and the other, heal your leaky gut, etc. So if you're looking for a POTS cure, this is only one small aspect of this. And not everyone is going to be able to tolerate this, so make sure you use discernment. I'm not saying it can help everybody, I'm just saying it is worth a try. If you're already eating your carbs and you're eating your plant foods, etc., that should be sufficient. But if you're narrowed down to very few foods, etc., you might need it. But like I said earlier, this is a temporary measure. You have to heal your gut so that your body can make it itself. So, glutamine is also necessary to help heal the gut and provides energies to the cells as well. Mast cell patients might have difficulties tolerating glutamine, but try again after you reach a certain level of healing, and you might be able to tolerate it then. Alright, vitamins. Some bacteria synthesize essential nutrients, such as vitamin K2, B vitamins, such as B1, thiamine, B2, B6, B12, biotin, and folate. And nicotinamide, which is B3, and that is important for mitochondrial NAD+ production. If you want to take a look at this chart, it is explaining the different vitamins and which part of the microbes in your gut affects that particular vitamin and what happens if it gets too low. Please, I beg of you, do not make me say all these different names of the microbes in your gut. I will be so far tongue-tied it's not even funny. But with B1, if it gets too low, an abundance of Peyer's patches the size of the B cell follicles and B cell numbers. B2, if it gets too low, there is impairment of intestinal cell growth, defective mitosis, and accumulation aneuploidy cells in the colon. I know I butchered that one too. If vitamin B3 gets too low, you might have a relapsing inflammatory bowel flare-up. If you get too low in B6, the mucus secreting cells go down and intestinal short-chain fatty acid production goes down, and this can trigger inflammation during irritable bowel diseases and do not alter the basic morphological features of the enterocytes. B9. The B9 helps intestinal carcinogenesis. It's intestinal mucosal crypt depth, mucosal cell division, and crypt mitosis in duodenum and the jejunum. The goblet cells and the abundance of Pannis cells in the ileum goes up, and it lowers apoptosis in the epithelial cells together with B2, B6, and B12 deficiency in the colon. And remember, apoptosis is when the immune system goes in and programs a cell for death because it's damaged or has a pathogen in it. So if your B9 gets too low, it cannot do that. B12. If your B12 runs too low, it's similar changes in intestinal mucosa as your B9 if that gets too low. It also, the villus crypt ratio and shortening of the villi in the intestinal cell differentiation. So in your gut, you have these tiny little fingers that move the food through your gastrointestinal tract. And it's kind of like if you look at your hand, that's how long they're supposed to be. But if you have chronic B12 deficiency and you have not enough of these particular bacteria for your gut, it will stunt the growth of these little fingers in your bacteria and how they move. And it can damage them and basically like turning your fingers into little nubs. You do not want that. Inflammation, chronic stress, eating trigger foods, and having a leaky gut can also create the nubbing effect of your villi or the fingers of your intestinal tract. Alright, vitamin K. Biochemicals produced in the microbiome. Vitamin K. It makes it and absorbs it. Its function is essential for blood coagulation and bone metabolism. The microbiome synthesizes vitamin K2, which plays a critical role in calcium metabolism. It's also extremely important for vitamin D uptake. Adequate levels of vitamin K are vital for preventing bleeding disorders and maintaining bone health. Deficiencies in vitamin K2 can lead to osteoporosis and cardiovascular diseases. B7, which is biotin or vitamin H. It makes it. Its function is important for carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. Deficiency can cause skin disorders, hair loss, and neurological issues. B9, also known as folate, the microbiome can make it and metabolize B9. It is critical for DNA synthesis and repair, and important in pregnancy for fetal development. So this has a direct impact and works very closely with the folate cycle in your methylation cycles. Deficiencies here can lead to megaloblastic anemia and birth defects such as neural tube defects. And it can also make it difficult if you already are having issues with your folate cycle in methylation. This can be an extra challenge to that. Lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, bacteroids, and prevotella are responsible for producing B9. So don't keep taking probiotics if you need to detox your folate levels, if you have dysbiosis or take them long term. Sometimes too much of a good thing turns bad. So take them when you need them, but listen to your body. It will tell you if it's too much or not. Colon is a major storage site for folate. So if you've got lots of inflammation here and you feel like crap, fast. If you want to eat salad for extra methyl if you suffer from allergies, histamine, or mast cell issues. Do not feed it more grains or starches, and definitely stay away from the enriched foods, especially with extra folate, folic acids, etc. B9 could also make BH4. So again, this one's directly tied to the methylation cycles, and this is where your MTHFR 1298 is located, and the microbiome affects the folate receptors. So this affects the folate cycle, which houses your MTHFR 677 tango. B12 provides enzyme to break down and absorb. Its function is essential for DNA synthesis, red blood cell formation, and neurological function. It is essential for methylation. Deficiency can lead to megaloblastic anemia and neurological disorders, including cognitive decline and peripheral neuropathy. All right, let's look at the microbiome and the vitamins. Microbiome and vitamin D. Vitamin D can help regulate the gut microbiome and increases beneficial bacteria and reducing harmful bacteria. It can also help with inflammatory bowel disease and regulate the immune response. How does vitamin D affect the microbiome? Well, it increases beneficial bacteria. Vitamin D can increase the number of beneficial bacteria like bacteroids and parabacteroids in the gut. It decreases harmful bacteria. Vitamin D can reduce the number of harmful bacteria in the gut. It regulates immune response. Vitamin D can also help regulate the immune response in the gut, which can help with irritable bowel diseases. Butyrate can also help with this, but avoid it if you have a SIBO or possible other issue. It maintains gastrointestinal barriers. Vitamin D can help maintain the gastrointestinal barrier, which can alter the microbiome. Vitamin D also affects IBD. Vitamin D can help treat irritable bowel diseases by modulating the gut microbiome, and vitamin D can help regulate the immune responses within the gut, which also helps irritable bowel disorders. Vitamin D also affects cancer immunity. Vitamin D can regulate microbiome-dependent cancer immunity. Vitamin D also affects infections. It can help the body regulate itself after an infection. It also helps you to absorb calcium, and it reduces overall disease manifestation. Now, a vitamin D deficiency will permanently change your microbiome and make it impossible to support healthy microbiome if not corrected. Chronic inflammation with vitamin D deficiency leads to a depletion of certain healthy microbes. Vitamin D and B100, and B100 is just a B complex. That's about 100 micrograms or milligrams. It has most, if not all, the essential B vitamins, and some people are not going to be able to tolerate this. But it favors the return of certain microbiota within your microbiome, and these items here make the normal human microbiome. They are Cyanobacteria, Bacteroidetes, Firmicutes, and Proteobacteria. Okay, I know I butchered those, but it's important for you to understand that these are what make the normal human microbiome. We give microbiome vitamin D, and it gives us B vitamins. So if you are low in vitamin D, you're going to experience fatigue, weight gain, seasonal effectiveness disorder, hypertension, high cholesterol, autoimmunity, B vitamin deficiencies, which is going to affect your methylation, improper microbiome, inflammation, cancers, infections in the gut, bloating, sleep cycle issues, and again, that is also part of methylation, mood issues, a harder time healing, including skin infections, etc. Now, vitamin D is vital in the BH4 cycle, which is part of methylation, and preventing your body from making too many stress hormones. So too much stress will crash your methylation as well, and chew through your nutrients and cause alterations in your microbiome. So vitamin D plays many roles inside of your body. And the other thing too is if it gets too low, your motor function will fail. Your muscles will not be able to function properly, which will hamper your ability to walk, etc. All right, vitamin A is another extremely important vitamin. Not only does vitamin A deficiency occur in almost all chronic illness, the microbiome is linked to it. Vitamin A plays a crucial role in maintaining a healthy gut microbiome by regulating the intestinal barrier function, influencing immune cell activity within the gut, and shaping the composition of the microbial communities by promoting beneficial bacteria, while potentially limiting the growth of harmful ones, essentially helping to maintain a balanced and diverse microbiome. A deficiency in vitamin A can lead to disruptors in the gut microbial balance and increase susceptibility to infections, including gut infections. So, how does vitamin A affect the microbiome? Well, it helps with immune system regulation. Vitamin A is vital for the development and function of immune cells in the gut, helping to regulate inflammation and maintain immune tolerance towards commensal bacteria. And like I said earlier, a deficiency in vitamin A is linked with chronic illness, especially if you have a mast cell disorder. It also helps with protecting the body from infections. And intestinal barrier integrity, it supports the health of the intestinal epithelial cells, so the cells on the gut wall, and preventing harmful substances from entering the bloodstream. And this is where leaky gut can come in. And just as a reminder, if your gut is leaking, your immune system is going to wind up reacting to it. And it can kind of keep your immune system stuck in chronic activation. On top of that, if it goes on for too long, it weakens the blood-brain barrier. So vitamin A helps regulate the expression of the tight junction proteins in the intestines, which helps maintain the barrier function of the gut. And the gut microbiome is the linchpin behind the entire cycle of illness. It also influences the composition of your microbes, and by doing so, it influences the immune system and the gut lining, and vitamin A can indirectly affect the types of bacteria that thrive in the gut, promoting the growth of beneficial microbes. This also affects the body's ability to absorb nutrients. Now, there are also anti-inflammatory effects that it provides. Vitamin A has an anti-inflammatory property that can help mitigate excessive inflammation in the gut, which is often associated with dysbiosis and an imbalance in the microbiome. Now, vitamin A deficiency can lead to dysbiosis, changes in the colon, including increased secretion and reduced absorption, and this can lead to diarrhea. Chronic inflammation with vitamin D deficiency leads to a depletion of certain healthy microbes. But vitamin A is what helps maintain the healthy balance along with vitamin D. So you cannot truly heal the microbiome with dysbiosis without vitamin A and vitamin D. We give the microbiome vitamin D, it gives us B vitamins, and we give it vitamin A, it helps keep our guts healthy, and it helps us to maintain immune tolerance. So if you are having health issues, or you're feeling off or feeling funky, look at your microbiome. Remember, the linchpin behind the whole cycle of illness series. This is why so many people do well on B complex vitamins, because the microbiome doesn't have the necessary vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to maintain a healthy microbiome. So taking a B complex vitamin can help some folks feel a lot better. And this is why so many people with chronic illness do well on B complex vitamins, because the microbiome can't make enough B vitamins due to the imbalanced microbiome. Now, there's a caveat to that. I know there's a lot of folks out there that cannot handle them, and that is partially due to blocked pathways within methylation. So, if you are not absorbing nutrients, is it damaged, or do you possibly have leaky gut? If you're chronically low on vitamin A and D, you will have a leaky gut. If you have chronic inflammation, you will cause damage, alter your microbiome for the worse, and it could wind up being permanent. Most likely, you have a deficiency of A, C, D, and K. Many of these vitamins are necessary for the absorption of nutrients and health of the gut lining and microbiome. Now, if you're having troubles balancing your B vitamins, chances are your microbiome is in dysbiosis, and it cannot make the necessary B vitamins, or you have too much of a particular bacteria pumping out too much of a particular B vitamin. Look at your microbiome and adjust your diet accordingly. Look for infections and solve those and rebuild your microbiome. And you can do this, and I teach it in the healing protocol, and juicing actually helps rebuild the microbiome. If you're having blood sugar swings, if your body swings from one end to the other after eating when it comes to blood sugar levels, then your microbiome is mainly to blame. You either have vitamin shortfalls or an imbalanced microbiome. So, to maintain a microbial diversity, you need vitamin A, which is essential for colon health, nutrient absorption, as well as infection control, irritable bowel diseases, intestinal permeability, and leaky gut. You also need vitamin D, B2, which is riboflavin, B3, which is niacin, vitamin C, and vitamin K. Now, to specifically digest food, you need A, B, C, D, and K, because those actually help your body digest food. So it's a two-way street here. So, optimal levels for vitamin D in labs. Normal patients should have a vitamin D level between 75 and 150. Now, for chronic illness patients, 100 or higher is generally needed, especially if you have the VDR. Daily vitamin D, so you need sunshine, and the amount you take will depend on where your vitamin D levels are. Winter months in the north, 3,000 to 10,000. But don't go over 15,000 because your body can't convert it and then you're just wasting it. Sunshine is also vitamin D. However, it's a different type of vitamin D and the body needs both. So you need vitamin D from the sun and you need vitamin D from your food. And each have their own pathways. We discussed this in great deal in the methylation video about the same time we were talking about the COMT, and there was a section with the VDR gene in the methylation video. So red light therapy, happy lights, full spectrum lights can also help you with your vitamin D levels in the winter. You just want to try to stay away from LED. I kind of cheat and I use high-powered plant lights because they're a heck of a lot cheaper than happy lights. And I also live in the Arctic where there's no sunlight in the wintertime, so they're nice and bright. So when I'm sitting here working on these videos for y'all, I have noticed a huge difference. They definitely help, and then I combine it with a red light at the same time, and you would be surprised how much that helps. I have noticed a huge difference. Plants absolutely need the sun to thrive, and I figured if we can grow food in the wintertime here in the Arctic using plant lights, if it works for them, it should work for us. It's not exactly the same, but it gets the job done, and we're talking about spending $30 versus hundreds or thousands. Actually, these are the same lights that I use, and I just purchased them from Amazon. Again, this is not a paid anything, this is just what I use, and I have found it has made a noticeable difference, so I am just sharing it with you as a possibility that you can look into. And I forgot to mention this earlier, your optimal levels for vitamin A in lab testing is between 20 and 60. And if you are extremely low, you want a daily vitamin A of 700 to 900 micrograms. Again, this is what I use, and the grass-fed beef liver is actually part of the healing protocol to help rebuild your vitamin A levels and fix those deficiencies. However, I understand that not everyone can tolerate this initially due to histamine issues. So an alternative is the micellized vitamin A, and it comes in a medicine dropper, and I will either put a couple drops in my juices, and I actually put them in little Piper's food as well to help her because she's my little masto mascot. She also has a wicked mast cell disorder like her mommy, a little bit too close like her mommy, and a lot of the same things I have to do for me, I have to do for her. The only difference is I have to alter it a little bit because she's so much smaller and dogs require different things. However, they still need vitamin A, and this helps her a great deal as well. So yes, even pets can be affected by mast cell disorders. So the very things that can affect our mast cell issues also affects them. Alright, there are other biochemicals that are produced by the microbiome, and this slide is pertaining to the amino acids and neurotransmitters. So, when it comes to amino acids, tryptophan is one of those biochemicals produced by the microbiome. It's an essential amino acid used in the synthesis of proteins, serotonin, and niacin, which is vitamin B3. And it has a huge impact on the body. Adequate tryptophan levels are crucial for mood regulation, as it is a precursor to serotonin, a neurotransmitter involved in mood, sleep, and appetite. I also need to mention right here when it comes to tryptophan is metabolized through the BH4 cycle. So for those of you that have the MTHFR 1298, that is the cycle that I'm talking about. And it is a crucial component to the BH4 cycle. And this will have a huge impact on your mood, your sleeping habits, and even your appetite. So tryptophan metabolism is extremely important, and it affects chitinine, serotonin, and indole derivatives, which regulates the gut barrier and immune tolerance. Histamine is another amino acid. Its function is a biogenic amine involved in local immune responses, regulating physiological function in the gut and acting as a neurotransmitter. And this is something that mast cell patients we know very well. And if you are a mast cell patient and you're not aware of this, watch the histamine video and watch the DAO video. Imbalances can contribute to allergies, gastrointestinal issues, and neurological symptoms. Excess histamine is linked to conditions such as mast cell activation syndrome, as well as others. You'd be surprised, even when you're digesting food, your body has to release histamine in order to digest food. So if your gut's not working properly, and you're not able to clear out that histamine properly, you're reabsorbing it and you're giving yourself an overload of histamine. And that's where the DAO comes in. Just remember, for those of you suffering with histamine issues, water neutralizes histamine. So if you're having an excess of histamine, drink 20 to 40 ounces of water. You will completely neutralize it. So those are basically the amino acids that are produced in the microbiome. The other thing are neurotransmitters. And the microbiome, neurotransmitters, BH4 cycle, and major depressive disorder and anxiety all come from this. So, serotonin, 90% of it is made in your gut. This also is a neurotransmitter that regulates mood, appetite, and sleep. Serotonin also helps with motility. So, serotonin is essential for your gut to actually move the food through your gut. Approximately 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. It influences mood and behavior and dysregulation linked with depression, anxiety, and gastrointestinal disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome or gastroparesis. GABA. GABA is supposed to be a calming neurotransmitter. Its function is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It plays a critical role in reducing neuronal excitability and is involved in regulating muscle tone. Dysregulation of GABA is associated with anxiety disorders, epilepsy, and other neurological conditions. Now, a lot of times people with anxiety can take GABA and that helps calm them down. However, if you have severe weaknesses in your microbiome, a leaky gut, or blocked pathways in methylation or detoxification pathways, or possibly inferior products or cheap fillers inside of the GABA, this can actually make things worse. And I happen to be one of those people. And I do believe it's got something to do with the fact that if you have a leaky gut, it's just another stress on the body, especially if you're out of methyl and there's a pathway blocked somewhere in your methylation. I haven't quite mapped out why this exactly happens, but I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out because I want to know. And as you know, I'm willing to share whatever I learn, possibly to the point of ad nauseum where you'd wish I would tell you less. Dopamine, which is involved in reward, mood, and motivation. This is a neurotransmitter involved in reward, motivation, and motor control. Alterations in dopamine levels are linked to conditions such as Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, and addictions, believe it or not, because we're always chasing the dopamine high. And you're going to see a lot of this with folks who are connected to their phones, video games, computers, constantly plugged into the digital world. And if you take it away, some of them lose their marbles, for a lack of a better way to say that, and this is the reason why. Sometimes they have to detox their dopamine levels. And other times we have too much, and other times we have not enough. And a lot of times people who are chasing after addictions, we're trying to feed our dopamine, and we're trying to get our dopamine up, but it does not work. If you have methylation issues, especially with the MTHFR, the COMT gene, and not enough vitamin D or SAMe, you can wind up getting into this vicious cycle. This can result in issues like excessive addictions. Like some people just have addictive personality. They do one thing and then they just can't stop doing it. PTSD can be heightened to an extreme level, and also drug and alcohol addictions, video game addictions, etc. All right, so norepinephrine and epinephrine is also a neurotransmitter, and this results in your stress response. And this is directly linked, again, to that BH4 cycle and the COMT gene. And if you don't have enough vitamin D or SAMe, this gets a whole lot worse. So, its function as a neurotransmitter, and it's involved in stress responses like fight or flight. And chronic stress can lead to long-term issues and has serious impact on your health. So it can keep you locked in fight or flight. And one of the things that you can do, it also is a very key indicator that you don't have enough vitamin D and you don't have enough SAMe, because the vitamin D and SAMe help neutralize, or more specifically, the dopamine breakdown, and then it either goes into a healthy metabolite or it creates norepi or adrenaline. And the vitamin D and the SAMe helps prevent your dopamine being converted into adrenaline. And if you are constantly stressed out and you're hyper all the time, you got too much adrenaline. And for those of you who have struggled with adrenaline issues, this is part of the equation. It's a big part of the equation. And one of the things I have noticed, if I feel like my adrenals are just running rampant, I have found SAMe and vitamin D actually helps knock that down. If you have the VDR gene mutation, you're going to have more problems with this. And if that's the case, make sure you stay away from caffeine and catecholamines. And catecholamines are dairy, chocolate, etc. Not to mention, when you have high epinephrine and adrenal issues going on in your body, so you'll know it because you feel that stress response. And it'll feel like that runaway freight train inside of you. It's also going to severely affect your organs, your heart, your renal function, and on top of that, it's going to damage mitochondria. But the big kicker is it's going to chew through all the necessary vitamins, nutrients, and methyl that you need to run your methylation cycles. And you might find yourself being hungrier more often because your body is desperately trying to get more fuel. But the more you eat, the worse you're actually making yourself, because you can't metabolize it because you just crashed everything. It's a tricky slope, my friends. All right, other metabolites that is produced inside the microbiome. The microbiome produces a huge variety of metabolites, which are chemical messengers and byproducts that influence nearly every system in your body. And I cannot state that enough. And that is why I always say, if your gut's not happy, nothing in your body is going to be happy. These metabolites help regulate immunity, inflammation, neurotransmitters, hormones, detox, and even your genes. So let's take a look at the different types of metabolites. You have polyphenol metabolites. The gut bacteria transform dietary polyphenols from like teas, berries, cocoa, other plant foods into other active metabolites. It creates urolithins, which is an anti-inflammatory and mitochondrial supportive. Enterolactone or enteroidol, which modulate estrogen and hormone signaling. And yes, I butchered those words again. Another metabolite are the bile acid metabolites. Gut bacteria deconjugate and transform bile acids, affecting fat digestion. The FXR and the TGR5 receptors. And these receptors are basically metabolic and immune signaling receptors. It also is involved in liver detox and cholesterol metabolism. So if your microbiome is not capable of doing this, you're going to have harder time digesting fats. It's also going to affect your metabolism and your immune system. And on top of that, it's going to make it more difficult to detox your liver, and you're going to have more cholesterol problems. So improper or altered bile acids, metabolism, and metabolites can contribute to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and cause oxidative stress, inflammation, insulin resistance, and direct liver damage. Dysregulation of bile acid homeostasis, such as in an increase in harmful secondary bile acids or altered signaling pathways involving receptors like the FXR, can disrupt lipid metabolism and promote fat accumulation inside of the liver. And if you're not careful, this can become very toxic and cause a bunch of inflammation and repeated inflammation and cellular damage to your liver. And we don't want that, because guess what? It greatly slows down methylation and causes more damage to your mitochondria, which keeps that cycle of illness running amok. All right, toxins and harmful metabolites from dysbiosis. And remember, dysbiosis means your gut microbiome is completely off. In an unbalanced microbiome, pathogens can produce lipopolysaccharides, that's LPS, and that is a major inflammatory trigger. It can also produce ammonia, which is neurotoxic and burdens methylation. And if you've got too much ammonia building up in your system, it's going to cause a lot of neurological issues and possibly neurological damage if not taken care of. Hydrogen sulfate. In low amounts, it helps signaling, but in excess, it damages your cells. Phenols, cresols, and indoles. These all disrupt detoxification and increase oxidative stress. And secondary bile acids may promote colon cancer and inflammation. So it's very important that you take good care of your microbiome and make sure that your microbiome stays balanced, because it causes all of these problems. So if you're having troubles with estrogen, you're having troubles with digesting food, especially fats, if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver, and you're getting all these neurological symptoms, inflammation, you're not going to detox properly, your mitochondria is going to get further damaged, and it can promote colon cancer and other types of issues in the body. And a lot of times we go to the doctor and your cholesterol levels are high. You may be feeling these other symptoms because that's what the labs show. They might just put you on a cholesterol medication, but that is not actually fixing the problem. You have to fix the microbiome, because your microbiome needs to be making those chemicals properly. And if you're starting to notice you've got non-alcoholic fatty liver, your microbiome is way off. And if you don't take care of it, it's going to keep getting worse. And you're going to wind up keep getting sicker, because, again, it's going to damage the liver. And if it damages the liver, that's going to damage your methylation, which is also going to damage your mitochondria and get you stuck in a very vicious negative feedback loop. And the only way to get out of it, unfortunately, completely change your diet and go to a whole foods diet, or if it's bad enough, as I've said a million times before, is to fast. And then we have to rebuild our microbiome. Now, there are other immune modulating metabolites, and these include indole derivatives, and these are from tryptophan, and they regulate the gut barrier and immune tolerance. Then you have the peptidoglycans and polysaccharides A, which shape immune responses. And then you have the aryl hydrocarbon receptor ligands, which help maintain immune homeostasis. Other metabolites are trimethylamine, which is TMA, and its function is produced by the gut microbiome from dietary choline, carnitine, and phosphatidylcholine. And TMA is converted in the liver to trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, which is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular diseases such as atherosclerosis. Polysaccharide A, or PSA, is a molecule produced by the Bacteroides fragilis that modulates the immune system. And PSA promotes the development of regulatory T cells, or TREGs, and maintains immune homeostasis, helping prevent autoimmune and inflammatory diseases. There's also the indole 3-propionic acid, or IPA, and this influences your immune function. It is a tryptophan-derived microbial metabolite with antioxidant properties. Now, IPA has a neuroprotective effects and it supports gut barrier integrity, so potentially reducing the risk of neurodegenerative diseases and intestinal disorders. So you are really starting to see why the microbiome is important in your body and how it is related to all the other systems in your body. All right, good versus bad gut bacteria. We are going to talk about some of them. And forewarning, I'm already tongue-tied. So yeah, we're going to try our very best to pronounce them correctly, which I can guarantee you will not always happen. All right, so good versus bad gut bacteria. So you have a microbiome in your skin, your upper and lower respiratory tract, your gut, and your oral cavity. Now, I am not going to read all those key microbes in each individual section because I've already tried and failed miserably. So, if you want to read it, please pause the video and then you can see the different types of key microbes that are in your skin, upper and lower respiratory tract, your gut, and your oral cavity. You want to keep a good balance of good gut microbacteria. These promote gut health, reduce inflammation, and support immunity. So things like lactobacillus, that's in yogurt and fermented foods, help. Bifidobacterium, which are probiotic, or it can be obtained by breastfeeding infants, for the infant that is. And then there are the three following ones directly below Bifidobacterium that I cannot say for the life of me. So those are all part of the good gut bacteria. There are also bad bacteria, and they are opportunistic bacteria, and these can contribute to diseases when overgrown. The first one is commonly known as C. diff, and this can cause colitis. Then there is the Escherichia coli and some pathogenic strains. Then there's Salmonella, there is Campylobacter, and then there's Fusobacterium, and then there's Heliobacter pylori, otherwise known as H. pylori, and those are linked to ulcers. So those types of microbes, if they grow out of control, are bad for your health. All right, so if we look at the chart on the right, we're going to look at, firmicutes. And these are generally beneficial, but balance is key. Examples are the Lactobacillus claustrum in some of those species, and the Faecalibacterium, and their roles help break down complex carbs, produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which fuel the colon cells and reduce inflammation, and supports immune system. The Bacteroidetes, those are Bacteroides and Prevotella. Their roles are digestion of plant-based fibers and polysaccharides, short-chain fatty acid production, and often in balance with firmicutes. I'm sorry. All right, actinobacteria. An example of this is a bifidobacterium, which is very good. It is found in probiotics and breast milk. It ferments fibers and produces beneficial metabolites, and it enhances gut barrier and immunity. Proteobacteria. Many are opportunistic or bad. The examples of these are the Escherichia or E. coli, Salmonella, and Heliobacter. Their roles: some strains are harmless, but overgrowth of certain ones is linked to disease and often associated with inflammation and gut dysbiosis. Varicomicrobia, and an example is the, Akkermansia musophilia. This is good, and their roles strengthen the gut lining, and it may help with obesity, diabetes, and inflammation. Then there's the Fusobacteria, and this can be pathogenic in high numbers. The example for this is the Fusobacterium nucleatum, and its roles is usually low in healthy guts, and high levels are linked to colorectal cancer and inflammation. All right, bonus tips. A diverse microbiome full of good bacteria can keep the bad guys in check. You can support that balance by eating a fiber-rich plant-based diet, including fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, and kefir. Now, I know for the mast cell patients, this can be very difficult to do. You have to limit processed foods and sugars and avoid unnecessary antibiotics. And another thing, stress, believe it or not, alters all of this. So, the good bacteria, which is helpful, like lactobacillus, it breaks down lactose, produces lactic acid, and helps support digestion. Bifidobacterium strengthens the gut lining, improves immunity, and ferments fiber. The Fasobacterium prosnitzel is an anti-inflammatory, and it produces butyrate, and this helps heal the gut lining. The Akkermansia mucinifila I'm sorry, but it supports gut barrier, helps regulate metabolism. The Roseburia produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and supports colon health. The Prevotella, in balance, aids fiber breakdown and can be problematic if it's too dominant. All right, bad bacteria, which is harmful in excess, and a bunch of tongue twisters coming up. C. diff, that's the first one. It causes severe diarrhea and colitis. The Escherichia coli, which is a pathogenic strain, is food poisoning, and it can cause UTIs and inflammation. Salmonella is a foodborne illness and causes gut inflammation. Campylobacter causes diarrhea, fever, and intestinal distress. The Fusobacterium nucleatum is linked to gum disease and colorectal cancer, and the Heliobacter pylori can cause ulcers and stomach cancer. Whew, we made it through. Signs of an unhealthy gut. And remember, if the gut's not happy, nothing in your body is happy. So, many parts of modern life can affect your gut microbiome, including high stress levels, too little sleep, eating a Western diet high in processed and sugary foods, and taking antibiotics. This in turn may affect other aspects of your health as well, such as immune function, hormone levels, weight, and the development of diseases. You may notice a few symptoms if you have reduced gut health. Here are 7 of the most common signs. Upset stomach, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and heartburn become a regular occurrence. A balanced gut has less difficulty processing food and eliminating waste. If you have to do these steps, then that is a major sign that you have dysbiosis. Take a digestive aid, take a histamine-reducing aid for your gut like DAO, take heartburn meds, or you're sick all the time, your signs that you have an unhealthy gut. Now, food intolerances. Food intolerances are the result of a difficulty digesting certain foods. This is different from food allergies, where the immune system attacks, mistaking itself for foreign invaders. So food intolerances is another sign that your gut is unhealthy. Food intolerances don't have the proper microbiome to properly break down and metabolize the foods you just ate. This works hand in hand with mitochondria and methylation. This can actually become a very vicious cycle. And those of you who are still here in the video, I can just hear you now. Oh yeah, we know. And food intolerances due to an unhealthy microbiome can trigger symptoms such as bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, and nausea. Skin irritation. Conditions like psoriasis may be related to types of bacteria in the gut, and lower concentrations of beneficial bacteria will impact the immune system and skin health. And I can say firsthand, this is absolutely true. Your skin will greatly change if your microbiome is unhealthy, especially if you're having sugar. Autoimmune conditions. Lots of studies show the connection between gut and immune systems. The entire cycle of illness and this slide show and video illustrates this fact. Systemic inflammation alters the functioning of the immune system. And don't forget, stress affects this as well. And everything you breathe in makes it all the way down to the top of your small intestines. So even if you're breathing in allergens, this can affect that. Unintentional weight changes. Rapid gain or loss of weight without changing your diet or exercise habits can be a sign of an unhealthy gut. Weight loss may be caused by malabsorption because of SIBO, or the gut lining is extremely damaged, or the villi, the little fingers that move food for your gut, have become stubs and stunted and cannot absorb nutrients. Weight gain can also be caused by insulin resistance and or increased inflammation. Remember, if you are putting on weight and you're accumulating fat around your stomach, remember that this is a self-preservation method that your body is using to protect you. So it's also a very good sign that your microbiome is off and it's going to start affecting your health. And if you get too much adipose tissue or that belly fat, it's going to start acting as an endocrine organ, and it's going to alter your hormones and everything else happening in your body. Plus, it's going to greatly affect your inflammation levels and cause a whole lot more. Another sign of an unhealthy gut is a high sugar cravings or high sugar diet. If you are constantly craving sugar, caffeinated things, this is a major sign of dysbiosis. Your bad bacteria wants to be fed, and it's overtaking your healthy biota. Research shows a high sugar diet leads to increased inflammation throughout the body. And, this is also part of the gut-brain axis, which we will be talking about later. Sleep disturbances or constant fatigue. Imbalanced gut can be linked to fragmented sleep, not deep enough sleep, or short fragmented durations. Remember, this is also linked to methylation and mitochondrial health. So dysbiosis can make all of this worse. And if you're not getting the proper sleep, this will also create more issues with methylation, detoxification issues, and your mitochondria, your hormone levels, inflammation levels, you name it, it's a whole cascade effect. The body's stress response, activation of the HPA axis, which is your adrenals, histamine buildup, can wake you up in the middle of the night and make it hard for you to sleep. A lot of folks think that this is a histamine dump, and in some ways it is. A histamine does get released to help wake you up. However, if it's happening in the middle of the night, it's not a histamine dump. It's the toxins building up because you're not moving or drinking water, which in turn raises histamine and also kicks in your adrenal glands because it's a stress on the body and it's got no way to get out. Histamine buildup is a natural process of the body not being able to detox. And histamine is a part of the sleep-wake cycle, so if methylation is off and your circadian rhythms are off, this will also make all of this worse. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, chug 20 to 40 ounces of water, and you will neutralize the histamine, and you will lower the stress response, and you generally can fall back asleep within 30 minutes. Because now you've given your body a way to neutralize the histamine and to detox it. Yes, I know it's a royal pain in the butt, and it will require frequent trips to the restroom, but it'll prevent long-term damage to your body. This is a temporary solution until your body gets to a level of health that stops waking you up and you can detox more efficiently. Then the healing protocol helps us to achieve that. Remember, if you take meds, you're giving your body one more thing to try to metabolize when it's already struggling, when water is your safest option. There are always exceptions to the rules. However, the water is the safer option, and adding more drugs to a system that's already overburdened, sure, it'll help you make you feel better, but it doesn't stop the damage. Fermentation of foods in the gut and reabsorption of the toxins will also trigger this. So if your gut's not moving properly, your body's reabsorbing everything in your gut, and that means it's fermenting and you're absorbing it, and then you're taking in more histamine as well. This can really be a vicious cycle. Some folks actually have to eat dinner very early in the day. I call it the early bird special. You gotta eat by, say, 3 o'clock to make sure your food is out of your stomach and already moving through your gut, so that you're not absorbing so much and your body's not having to work so hard while you're sleeping. Again, all of this is a temporary measure until you fix your gut, until you fix your microbiome. So what you're actually absorbing at night when you're sleeping, if things aren't working properly, is histamine, harmful byproducts the body is trying to detox, hormones, neurotransmitters, and all of this can knock your system further out of balance. So, dysbiosis. It is an unbalanced or unhealthy gut microbiome, and it causes changes in the composition or the function of the gut microbiome, loss or deficit of beneficial bacteria, overgrowth of potentially pathogenic or bad bacteria, loss of overall bacterial diversity, and that's a very important one, and dysbiosis can be categorized based on the specific imbalances that occurs. Loss of beneficial bacteria, overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, or a decrease in overall diversity. Dysbiosis may start with any of those 3 factors, but it is a vicious cycle where one leads to the other, so it's a domino effect. Dysbiosis has been linked to various health conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, obesity, diabetes, mental health disorders, including extreme stress responses, and it creates a cascading effect on the body and the systems. Now, you can create gut dysbiosis by any of these avenues of delivery that we're about to go over. Ingestion. Toxins you eat or drink, like food allergies, sugar, junk food, processed food, can help cause dysbiosis. Inhalation. Everything you breathe in makes it down to your stomach and the top of your small intestinal tract, and that will affect it. Dermal absorption. Many products we use have chemicals in them that alter hormones, the microbiome, and your immune system. And one that I haven't listed in here is stress, smoking, and alcohol. Those can really mess up your gut microbiome in a hurry. And gut dysbiosis results in a host of symptoms like obesity, diabetes, allergies, atherosclerosis, premature aging, Alzheimer's, MS, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, liver disease, cancer, autoimmune diseases, and then a whole host of other types of symptoms. So this slide here is basically stating the same thing, but while the concept of the levels might not be a formal categorization, dysbiosis generally refers to an imbalance in the gut microbiome characterized by a loss of beneficial organism, overgrowth of hormone, and a reduction in overall microbial diversity. It's often described as a disruption to the healthy balance in the gut. Depending on the resources, you may find slightly varying answers to this, but below is the general accepted answers. So the loss of beneficial organisms, the overgrowth of harmful organisms, and the loss of your overall microbial diversity. It is important to note that these types of dysbiosis are not mutually exclusive and can often occur concurrently, meaning a person might experience a combination of these imbalances. All right, conditions related to the poor gut microbiome. We've already been talking about it this whole time. But gut and digestive disorders, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth like SIBO, leaky gut syndrome, which means intestinal permeability is lax, food sensitivities and intolerances, especially histamine, FODMAPs, gluten, salicylates, oxalates, etc. Brain and mental health. This is where the gut-brain axis becomes disrupted, and inflammation, neurotransmitter imbalances result in vagus nerve dysfunction, and this will cause anxiety and depression, brain fog, autism spectrum disorders, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia, and chronic fatigue syndrome. So this really affects that gut-brain axis. Metabolic disorders. The microbiome affects blood sugar control, fat storage, and appetite hormones, and this can cause obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and dyslipidemia, which is high cholesterol triglycerides. If you have autoimmune conditions, gut dysbiosis triggers inappropriate immune activation, And rheumatoid arthritis is one of those big ones. MS, systemic lupus, Hashimoto's, type 1 diabetes, and psoriasis. Now, there are other autoimmune conditions out there, and I've illustrated throughout the cycle of illness how everything ties in. But if your gut is severely in dysbiosis, these are going to get hit really badly. Allergic and mast cell disorders. Dysbiosis alters immune tolerance and histamine degranulation, and this can result in asthma, eczema, allergies, histamine intolerance, and MCAS. Cardiovascular health. Microbial metabolites like TMAO form poor gut flora, can damage blood vessels, and you can wind up with hypertension, atherosclerosis, heart disease, or a stroke risk. Cancer, chronic inflammation, impaired detox pathways, and toxin production by the bad bacteria. So when it comes to cancer, your higher risk of colorectal cancer is the strongest risk. Breast cancer, liver cancer, and pancreatic cancer. Now, I don't want to scare you. There's a very good chance you could never get this, but it's very important that you take care of your gut. Conditions also related to gut microbiome include the hormonal and endocrine imbalances. The microbiome regulates hormone metabolism. It's actually called the estroblome, and it helps regulate estrogen. PCOS, estrogen dominance, can cause PMS, fibroids, and endometriosis, and thyroid disorders. All of this comes from the hormonal and endocrine imbalance from a bad microbiome. Children's health. Early in life microbiome imbalances set the stage for immune and brain development, and this can give rise to ADHD, autism, allergies, and eczema, and recurrent infections. Other conditions related to a bad microbiome is chronic infections like chronic Lyme, EBV reactivation, which is the Epstein-Barr virus, migraines, skin conditions like rosacea, acne, psoriasis, and even interstitial cystitis. And that is the bladder pain symptoms. And that one's nasty. That one hurts. Okay, well, apparently I made another slide explaining the exact same thing, but I do want you to look at the microbiota gut-brain communication chart here. As you can see, this has a huge effect. On the healthy side, if you have a good microbiome, you have a healthy central nervous system, neurochemical production, you don't have neuroinflammation, neurogenesis is good, your myelination is good, you have a great blood-brain barrier integrity, and you don't have to worry about neurodegeneration. A high diversity of beneficial commensal microorganisms like bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, and polyphenic metabolites, vitamins, and neurotransmitters and bile acids properly managed promote a healthy lifestyle. That means you've got your healthy diet, a healthy gut, probiotics, prebiotics, and it's able to make short-chain fatty acids, which is extremely important. Now, if you have poor microbiome, you're going to wind up with leaky gut dysbiosis. Antibiotics can make this worse. The Western diet and a high-fat diet will make this worse. It will cause premature aging, and it'll up your stress levels considerably, both mentally and physically. It'll also cause obesity, and because it's raising your lipopolysaccharides, the bacteriides, the proteobacteria, the bacteria amyloid, your gut peptides, your intestinal microbials, your gut hormones, gut inflammation, and gut permeability, it is going to create peripheral oxidative stress. And that oxidative stress damages your body. And that's going to wind up resulting in depression, anxiety, dementia, a diseased central nervous system. And the other thing is you're going to wind up having more activation of your vagus nerve. You're going to wind up having neuropeptides and neurotransmitters like serotonin, and you're not going to have enough. You're also going to have immune signaling, more of it, and out of control. The blood-brain barrier integrity might be weakened. and you're going to have a lot harder time making short chain fatty acids, and that alone creates an entire cascade effect. Short chain fatty acids like butyrate, one, it helps heal your gut and fuels the cells in your gut. Two, it stabilizes heart rhythm, so that is also very important. You're also going to have blood-brain barrier disruption, neuroinflammation. Your reactive oxygen species is going to go up like crazy, and that's a bad thing. And you're going to have a great amount of oxidative stress. You're going to have proteins wind up dispositioning themselves. You're going to have pro-inflammatory molecules, microglia activation, and that is your brain's immune system kicking in. You're going to have astrocyte activation and altered GABA signaling. Maybe that's why the GABA causes those symptoms, because of the gut-brain axis, and that is highly probable. All right, basically another slide where it's kind of repetitive, so I'm not going to go in depth with it, but if you want to pause the video and read it, feel free. All right, healing the gut microbiome. We have to remove the bad, rebuild it. We have to repopulate all the good microbiota. We have to repair the actual gut lining itself and restore the balance and the diversity. So we need to remove harmful inputs. Think of it like weeding a garden. We're removing what harms the healthy microbes by cutting out processed foods like sugar, refined carbs, seed oils, and additives. We need to minimize drugs and alcohol. This damages the gut lining and feeds harmful bacteria. Avoid unnecessary antibiotics. Only use them when you truly need them, because it can just destroy your gut microbiome. Check for hidden toxins like mold, heavy metals, and pesticides in food, water, and your environment. Something as simple as an air purifier can come in extremely handy. Then we want to feed the good bacteria, the prebiotics. So that requires fiber, which are food for beneficial bacteria. It increases your fiber intake gradually, and the microbes love fibers like oats, chicory root, flaxseed, garlic, onions, asparagus, and add a resistant starch, which is cooked and cooled like potatoes, green bananas. Just keep in mind, potatoes can further damage the gut if it's already damaged or leaking. Now, I know for some folks that these food choices are not going to help them because they can't handle it. Just bear with me, because the healing checklist, there's a way to get around this. You want to repopulate with probiotics. So fermented foods, if you can tolerate it, like kefir, yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, and miso. A lot of maso patients cannot tolerate this with their histamine issues. Probiotic supplements if needed. You need to start slow, and strains like lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, or the Saccharomyces boulardii for yeast issues. The Seeking Health bifidobacteria is a good one that helps promote healing and good bacteria without causing too much of a histamine overload and helping to repopulate your microbiome. It's a good alternative to help start you out and to help you start building back your microbiome. This is the choice generally made by maso patients because it helps protect our histamine levels. We are also going to need to strengthen the gut barrier, which means we have to heal a leaky gut. And building protective wall around your garden is essentially what we're doing. So nutrients that repair the lining are L-glutamine, and these are fuel for intestinal cells. Now, some maso patients cannot tolerate this because it releases histamine. Zinc carnosine, it soothes inflammation. Aloe vera extract can be gut calming. Again, this is one of those things where people have to be careful because they could have an allergy to it. Bone broth or collagen helps rebuild the structure. Now, this really does help. However, for the high histamine folks, this can be too much for you. Slippery elm and marshmallow root. This is actually found in Dr. Amy Meyer's Leaky Gut Repair, and it coats and heals the gut lining. And an extra bonus, if you have interstitial cystitis, I believe it's either the slippery elm or the marshmallow root that helps coat the inside of your bladder and helps alleviate the pain. So it can help with healing your gut, and it can also help with healing your interstitial cystitis. Butyrate provides fuel and helps heal the gut, and this is really good if you have a IBS flare. It can help calm it down. You have to avoid triggers like gluten, dairy, high processed foods, sugar, if sensitive. Think of this as building a protective wall around your garden. Now, we also have to support mitochondria and energy production. So this is kind of like powering the repair crew. A healthy gut lining needs ATP. That's your cell's energy. That's the energy you feel on a daily basis. Or if you're chronically fatigued, the energy you don't feel on a daily basis. But you absolutely need it to keep your cell processes going. You want to support that with CoQ10, but some of us have to start extremely slowly. Magnesium. Magnesium is another important biochemical, but once again, not everyone can tolerate that. I have not quite been able to isolate the mechanism that prevents some of us from taking magnesium. I happen to be one of those people, and I'm still not sure why. B vitamins, especially B2, B3, B6, and B12. Mast cell folks that may be poor methylators, like really low when it comes to methylation, and those with the MTHFR 677 tango may not be able to tolerate folate. A lot of times we have to clear pathways before we can even begin to think about taking folate. And those with the MTHFR 677 tango, that one you have to work very closely with and very carefully with. Too much is going to make you feel miserable no matter who you are. But if it's building up in your system, it's going to cause a lot of joint pain, muscle pain, inflammation, headaches, etc. So if you take folate and if you start feeling symptomatic, stop taking it. You need to detox it out of your system first because you probably have too much, especially if you've been eating the modern Western diet with all the processed foods, the breads, buns, pastas, you name it. Your folate levels are going to be too high because all of that stuff is enriched. You're wanting to balance the immune responses. So we want to train the garden guards. So we have to calm excessive inflammation. And the best way to do that is to fast, especially if your gut has shut down. If your gut has shut down, that is a surefire sign that the gut, 1, is too damaged. 2, you don't have the proper serotonin or neurotransmitter to keep it running. 3, your body is doing it and locking it down to help protect you. And 4, it is telling you it can't handle this food anymore. It's either intolerant to it or you have an allergy to it, and it's trying to protect you. That's what your body does. You also want omega-3 fatty acids like fish oil or flaxseed oil. Curcumin from turmeric. If you have a high oxalate issue, do not take that. Quercetin. Quercetin. Again, not everybody can take quercetin. And this is a natural mast cell stabilizer. And you've heard me in previous videos say that for some people it's actually harmful. Now, I happen to be one of those people. And I did a whole thing on it on quercetin and why some people can't take it, and you can find that on my blog at www.mastoqueen.com, and I explain it in great detail why some folks cannot take quercetin. Please read that because a lot of folks are recommending high doses of quercetin, and sometimes it is way too much, and in the long run, you are actually creating more damage to your body. So you may be feeling health benefits from it initially, but down the road, it's going to catch up with you. So please read that paper that I wrote on quercetin. So balancing the immune system is going to help foster tolerance and not overreaction. And that's what we have to work on. Manage stress and sleep. Stress reduction equals fertilizer for your gut. And you would be surprised how important sleep is for your gut. Stress wrecks your microbiome. It also crashes methylation, which doesn't help. You need to look at your daily habits of what you're doing. If you're not getting enough sleep or you're having too much stress in your life, you need to make changes. Because if you're already having a chronic illness, it's not going to do you any favors. You're going to want to do deep breathing exercises like Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. Something that creates a centeredness inside of you, a heart-brain connection, and one of peace and one of love for yourself, for nature all around you. And it helps balance you, and it actually calms down your nervous system, as well as help you build mitochondria, detox, and help rebuild your microbiome, because exercise affects your microbiome as well, and we want to do everything we can to promote healing of the microbiome. You're wanting to do meditation and affirmations. You'll be surprised all that negative self-talk you have with yourself or others, how much it affects you. You also have to make sure that the thoughts you are thinking, you have mirror neurons in your body, and those mirror neurons are part of the nervous system. They can't tell the difference if you're thinking about something, if you're reading it, watching it TV, or if it's actually happening right in front of you. Your mirror neurons are going to react. They can't tell the difference. So you have got to control your thoughts, what you sleep, what you read, etc. I mean, if you have a real life stressful event take place, that's one thing. But all that other stuff you can control. It has a very big impact on your microbiome. You also need time outdoors. Nature is health. Nature helps calm. Nature helps ground you. Sunlight is more important than you may realize, and so is fresh air. And a good sleep hygiene. You need dark, cool room and a consistent schedule, because remember, methylation follows your circadian rhythm, and if methylation is off and your microbiome is off, it's going to create this whole cascade effect of your difficulty with sleeping. So in order to fix methylation, which helps you fix the microbiome and the mitochondria and everything else, you need to get to bed 2 to 3 hours before midnight, and then you need to get up first thing in the morning. Don't sleep in. And the general rule is sun down, sun up is when you're sleeping and you're getting up with the sun. That is actually how our bodies were divinely created to operate. And in today's world, that doesn't always work. And if you live somewhere like, I don't know, the Arctic, that sun up, sun down thing, we would be sleeping for 4 months straight. So you need to stay consistent with your sleep schedule. And you would be surprised how the light throughout the day changes your metabolics in your body, creates healing, and sets the tone for your circadian rhythms. So it's very important to do this. And if you are a shift worker, this can get extra challenging. I am still paying the price 15 years later after 16 years of doing shift work. It has a very long-reaching effect on your life. So if you have chronic illness and you are a shift worker, if it is possible for you to get off shift work, do it. When you are healing the microbiome, and a lot of times, if things are really bad, you have to fast. And some people experience the die-off of all the microbiome, the bad bacteria. And this can cause serious reactions and a temporary worsening of your symptoms when you're trying to shift the gut from a bad bacteria environment to a good bacteria environment. It is not comfortable, and I can personally attest to this. But if you push yourself through, you can slow it down a little bit. If you have something overgrown in your body, you can slow it down, but You're still going to have some symptoms, but the idea is to slow your detoxing down just enough to where you're still detoxing, but at the same time, you're not overburdening your system at the same time. So you have to find the balance for you. But don't give up completely, because if you give up completely, you're never going to heal. So you want to pace fiber, probiotics, and fermented foods gently to avoid overwhelming your system. If you're a mast cell patient, chances are you cannot do that. So that's where the fasting part comes in, because we can't keep adding more when we can't tolerate it to begin with. And I explain all of this in the healing checklists. Which reminds me, the healing checklist video on how it all works, where I explain it in great detail, is on Rumble. I could not post it on YouTube, so it is on Rumble. You can also find the healing checklist itself on mastoqueen.com. Just remember to read it first, the entire thing. And if you have questions, go to the video. I explain everything in great detail. The Rumble account is also mastoqueen. Now, I understand that not everyone can use the suggestions that we just did on the previous slide. I get that. And the healing checklist has alternatives, but here's the general rule of thumb. You need to fast if your gut has completely shut down. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you need to take this seriously. It is shut down for a reason, for a variety of reasons. Not enough neurotransmitters like serotonin, your methylation, and your microbiome are severely impacted. You also have to fast if you have a severe leaky gut to the point where every time you even think about trying to eat, your brain goes nuclear, and it is very painful. Your nerves will hurt. The lymph nodes might hurt. Your entire spinal cord could wind up swelling. Your brain could be burning. A migraine so severe that it affects your cognitive and motor function, and you could possibly have symptoms of feeling like you're stroking out. You may not be actually having a stroke, but it can feel like one. Your neuroimmune system is royally kicking in, and you don't want to keep allowing that to happen, because it will eventually cause brain damage and inflammation. And trust me, you do not want that. Burning brain, temporary paralysis, temporary blindness, etc. are all severe symptoms that are letting you know that you've got to detox and you have got to heal your gut. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there is no magic pill that can get you around this. You can use medicine to help you get through it as you're healing, but you have to take the steps to actually heal your body. The magic pills are not going to do it for you. One word of caution, if they give you amitriptyline, that actually causes more mitochondrial damage and further disrupts your cycle of illness. I will say rizatriptan greatly does help, and for some folks, a different drug is what you're going to need, but those are generally the two that get prescribed. So if they try to give you amitriptyline, do not take that one. Ask for an alternative, because it's just going to damage your mitochondria. But these symptoms that I just mentioned, that's your body's way of telling you you have such a bad leaky gut. You also have a leaky blood-brain barrier, and foreign objects, debris, toxins are getting into the brain. You have to fast when that happens. You can go through the pain of healing or go through the pain of regret when your condition takes a turn for the worse. And I know it's a sucky option either way, but in the long run, healing is the better way. If you have severe damage to the gut, you're going to want to fast, because if you keep adding food to it and it's already raw, it's irritated, inflamed, you're just going to keep aggravating it, and your body can digest or it can heal. It cannot do both. If you have an infection, it's important for you to get rid of the infection. There are alternative means of doing so. I can't mention it here because this is going on YouTube, and I have to be very careful with what we can and cannot say, because YouTube is extremely stringent on the censorship. So stay tuned on that one, and I'll give you my cheats in the next Diaries of a Master Warrior. As we have said, if you have too much stress, that is going to affect your ability to digest, and it's going to severely put strain on your renal functions because of your chronic fight or flight response. If you are sedentary, this is also going to hurt your microbiome. You have to get exercise, even if it's gentle exercise or you're just walking every day. That's great. But if you're just sitting or behind a computer all the time, like I have been writing this series, it's going to harm you. Also, if your gut has shut down, it could wind up being a self-preservation mode to prevent further damage or absorption of the toxins if you're eating them and you know your body doesn't like them. If you're suddenly putting on a lot of weight, look at your endocrine, microbiome, and gut health. That is the way that your body is trying to tell you, because it's making metabolic changes to accommodate the foods that you're eating that it can't handle. Your body starts stashing all the toxins in your belly fat to protect you until it can deal with it because it's too far overburdened. This also creates adipose tissue, that's that white body fat we were talking about around the belly, because that's where it stores the toxins until a later date when it can properly heal and detox it from your system without it harming you. The body is a fabulous machine, and it is complicated, but not that complicated, but it's got all these backup systems to help protect you, and shutting down the gut is one of them, and adding adipose tissue is another. For the most part, just changing your diet can be a huge help, but what if you can't tolerate foods anymore, like a lot of our mast cell patients have found out the hard way? We have to calm down our inflammation. We have to heal any infections. We can rebuild the microbiome, but it does take time. I hear a lot of, how long do I have to do this? Well, it depends on 1, your age, 2, how much damage you have, how long it's been going on. It depends. And you didn't get sick overnight. You're not going to be able to fix it overnight. So you're in this for the long haul, and you have to use discipline and willpower to get through it. And believe me, I know how hard that can be. So I have created the entire Cycle of Illness series to teach how this all fits together, how it's all interconnected. The healing protocol addresses all the areas of the cycle of illness: histamine, inflammation, mitochondria, methylation, and now the workings of the immune system, which your microbiome houses. Now, before you make changes, like I always tell folks, check with your doctor before making any major changes to your diet or your habits. Make sure it's safe for you, and use discernment. The Combined Integrating Healing Protocol is posted on mastoqueen.com, and if you want the video to it, and where I go through it in great detail to explain why we do all these different steps, that is on Rumble. That healing checklist is designed to help your body detox. It is designed to help rebuild your microbiome. It is designed to help heal your gut. It is designed to also heal the nutrient deficiencies so we can properly heal the cells, because if we can't heal our cells, we're not going anywhere. And if we can't heal our gut, we're not getting any better either. And to heal every area of the cycle of illness. And it all has to have separate steps. And a lot of folks try to fix one thing and they don't get better because they didn't fix the other areas of the cycle of illness. If stress was a big factor behind your illness, you can eliminate the stress, sure. But if you have weaknesses in your body, they're still there, and you still have to heal it, and you still have to fix it. And just remember, exercise is a key component. It is crucial for the health of your body and your hormones and your gut microbiome. Overexertion can lead to adrenal surges if you're working out too hard and your body's already struggling. One of the things you'll know if you're working out too hard, all of a sudden when you get down working out, You'll be really irritable. If you catch yourself kind of snapping at others after doing a workout, it's too much for your body. It also means you can't sit still, but you're also exhausted because what's keeping you going is the fight or flight response, and your body is flooded with adrenaline. It's an exhausting type of energy. Those with chronic illness need to take it easy and support the body, the microbiome, the hormones, the mitochondria, the methylation, and those detox pathways. So start slow. Types of exercise that are always beneficial to the body, even if you're having adrenal, homocysteine, or other hormone issues, are Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, and resistance training, like the resistance bands. And the chart to the right shows what happens in the body before, during, and exercise. So it gives you an idea of why you're exercising. The other thing is, if you have POTS, if you're laid up in bed, there are routines you can do, like Qigong and Tai Chi moves that you can do from bed, and that is fine. Just keep moving. If you're stuck in bed and you have to stay laying down, just do it a couple times a day, and that just helps keep everything moving in your system. And for those who are able to get up and get out of bed, if any type of exercise is extremely strenuous to you, one of the best ways to start out is find a senior citizen workout that's about 10 minutes long. That is the best way to start, or Qigong, an easy one, or an easy Tai Chi, whichever one works for you. The senior citizen workouts work great when you're trying to heal your body and you are extremely weak. It's what I do. There's no shame at all. The goal is to heal, so do what you have to do. It doesn't matter how slow you start out. What's important is that you stay consistent and do it every single day. And within a couple weeks, you'll start noticing a big difference. It may be challenging at first, but stick with it. Anything you can imagine, you can find on YouTube for free. And that's a wrap for the cycle of illness immune system, the microbiome. Stay tuned, where the following videos I will teach you how the microbiome affects every single system in the body in great detail. A lot of aha moments are going to happen. It's really long, so I'm going to have to break it into tiny little sections. You'd be surprised what it causes. And when we get to each section, like I said, there's going to be so many aha moments. You will truly understand how the whole body works together and causes your symptoms and what to do about it. And it'll also tie every single system in your body to the overall cycle of illness that we've been talking about. But that's all, folks. Stay tuned for more from Living Better with Mast Cells, Autoimmune and Chronic Illness, aka the Masto Queen. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, X, and Instagram. And for those of you who are in other countries that do not have access to Rumble, I am trying to put those particular videos on my blog at www.mastoqueen.com.